Welcome back to Conservative Conversations. I am your host, Reid.
And I'm Frank.
Today we're going to be talking about Trump's impact on sports and the ridiculous USAID spending uncovered by Doge. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you to please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform, and you can also subscribe on our YouTube channel. And if you'd like to hear an extra segment, you can become a paid subscriber on our podcast host, Red Circle. Alright, so before we get started, congratulations to all you Eagles fans. Your team won the Super Bowl last night as we're recording this. Of course you know that. It's not news to you. But congratulations, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure they're out there nursing some hangovers this morning.
Yeah, it's the big game. I'm not even sure if I should have said the name of the game.
Oh, yeah,
they're
that's a very litigious organization.
Yes, they are over the use of the name of the game. But it's definitely a big moment, because what is news, or sort of news, related to some stuff we talk about on the show, is the president was there. The first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl, which, a big game. Which I didn't know. I thought, others may have attended in the past. But no, Donald Trump was the first sitting president to go to one, so I thought that was pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I mean, the dude just keeps making history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's for sure.
And I think it's cool because it's going to live on. I mean, even if somebody else tries to go, or will in the future, somebody will.
Yeah.
It's going to be echoed. They're going to say, no, a president hasn't come to this since Donald Trump was the first. So it'll live on into the future, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was definitely quite the moment. He got a very, very huge applause when they showed him on the big screen during the national anthem.
Yeah. He looked good, too, saluting. He was saluting the whole time.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Ivanka was there with him. She looked beautiful. She stood with her hand over her heart, like the Pledge of Allegiance kind of thing.
Nice. Well, that's cool. It was definitely a big cultural moment. I mean, it's one of the things that happens every year that brings people together from all sorts of backgrounds and stuff like that. And I thought it was good to see that, it definitely seems like people are not ashamed or afraid to show their pride and to be proud of their president and their country, which, go together.
Well, I think you're dead right. And, he's bringing common sense and normalcy back.
Right.
Like there was some little bit of outrage by some about how they changed the slogan in the end zone from
end racism
to just
choose love.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But we've seen this with a lot of things. I mean, he's not only bringing sanity back in terms of the kneeling during the national anthem and all of that with this organization, but we've seen him bring normalcy or attempt to bring normalcy to a lot of these sporting things, haven't we?
Right. Yeah. Like most notably, last week, he had signed the executive order for protecting women's and female sports. I think it was the official name is keeping men out of women's sports, which is good. I mean, it's a lot of people have already said it's kind of silly that he even had to do such a thing, but it's unfortunate that our culture had gotten to the point where it had to be done. And I thought it was quite a good moment. I'm sure some people have seen the clip that's gone around of him signing it, where he gathers all these women around of all ages, those young girls, even I don't want to say old women, but
older.
Yeah, older women. And at one point, when he's signing it, and this is what I think is so cool, I think it's like right after he says it's a 10 because he's talking about how he wants to make it a good one because it's
His signature.
Yeah, his signature, right? And right after he signs it, one of the young ladies there says, "God bless you, Mr. President." And I thought that was so special because it shows how important it is to them that he's doing this.
Yes. Well, and it's also, I mean, I don't know that I've seen it as much in the press, but he's also taking this effort global. You know, we've seen pushback. He's given pushback on the Olympic Committee that he wants these same sort of changes for the Olympics too.
Right.
That, you know, men should not be competing against women in women's events.
Right.
So hopefully it'll have, you know, sort of like America sets the tone in a way for the rest of the world. Hopefully we'll see that echo and ring out around the world and other people be happy for it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it was like the next day, the NCAA had come out and said they were going to change their policies and basically abide by it. I mean, so that's a step in the right direction. And, you know, it's about time.
Yeah. But you still see the same craziness from the other side. I mean, I don't know if you would have seen it. I bored myself to tears watching a press conference by the Democratic Women's Caucus. And I'm not even sure if that's bicameral or if it's just out of the House or who these women even really were. I think they were mostly House women, but they came out and had to make all these points about how Trump is hurting women and all this is going to hurt women and girls, and it's just crazy. I mean, Dana Perino had a soundbite saying that it's almost like there's two Americas. But I think when you look at, you know, not just the media coverage, the surface level headlines and that kind of thing, I think you see that this really is ringing true all across America. I mean, there was reporting out today that Trump's numbers, his approval rating is the highest it's ever been, higher than his first term, higher than he's ever gotten on one of these sort of report cards, if you will. So it's good, and hopefully, you know, the more these, you know, lefties sound like Looney Tunes, people will keep waking up and realizing that this is good. This is a step in the right direction.
Right. Exactly. Right. I thought I had something. Well, so some other good news that I think kind of highlights some of the cultural shift that's going on is the military recruitment records have been broken 2 months in a row for December and January. And I think that shows that people, you know, believe in the leadership that they're, you know, that's, you know, at the head of the government. I mean, you know, he's the executive commander-in-chief, so he's going to be telling the military what to do. And if you have good faith and belief in your leader, I mean, you would want to join. As compared to, you know, in the past administration, when you have leaders like Mark Milley talking about how he thinks the rank and file need to learn about white rage or whatever. Why would you want to join the military with people like that at the leadership?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's just common sense. I hate, you know, because that's sort of Trump's thing that he keeps saying, but it is common sense. I mean, I mean, I don't even know. It's one of those things, like you said, it's sad that you even have to say it. But what kind of a man, a military man, soldier, wants to serve next to some transgender person who insists on carrying tampons around even though they don't have a menstrual cycle and this kind of thing? You know, it doesn't. Who wants to see tax dollars go to sex changes for military people?
Right.
Who wants? I mean, it makes a farce out of the force.
Right.
And as soon as these things start to change, what do you see? You see a groundswell of support by people coming in.
Right.
And the way things were going, the numbers were dwindling so bad that if we had gotten into some kind of terrible war, World War III type of scenario, you would have seen a draft from Biden. You know, they would have had to compel people.
Yeah.
But now all you do is do a couple policy changes and you have people running in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, on, I believe it was today's episode of Louder of Crowder, as we're recording, that was one of the subjects that they were talking about is the military recruitment. And they referred back to an ad from under Biden's administration where you have people talking about their, the first, Latino, cisgender with generalized anxiety disorder from their family to join the military. And one of the things they kept joking about, because that's part of what, if anybody's not familiar, Louder Crowder is partly a comedy show, is like, what kind of soldier wants to enlist next to somebody who's claiming they have generalized anxiety disorder? I mean, they used to kind of screen for those things and not recruit those type of people, because what the heck do you think is going to be happening if you have generalized anxiety disorder and you're being shot at? So, I mean, it's silly what the goals that they thought they were trying to achieve before, but we got good leadership now, so hopefully, we see, the trend of recruitment continue. I think it'll be good because they want to rebuild the military. It's been torn down so much simply by the fact that people haven't been joining and the lower funding,
lower morale.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great to see the ship starting to turn around some.
Well, it had to happen. I mean, it had to happen at some point. Like you say, you don't know what their goals were. I'm not sure that they had any. It's just so, back asswards, if you'll allow it.
Sure.
That, I'm not sure that they were thinking anything. They just want to celebrate all of this crazy stuff.
Right.
And I really think the goal was to destroy. I think it was. I mean, they wanted to destroy the morale of our military. We have the best military in the world.
Right.
We've always known that.
Yeah.
If you grew up in America, we've got the greatest military in the world. They want to destroy that. We're one of the richest nations in the world, if not the richest. They wanted to destroy that, and boy, they tried. I really think it was just to be a wrecking ball to what America is and what it stands for.
Yeah. Right.
Because I don't know how else you celebrate that DEI stuff. I mean, it's almost backwards, too. If you have a very accomplished person, they might say, I'm Dr. Smith, PhD, MD, whatever. You get all these letters after your name, whatever. Well, it's almost like an attempt to do that, to like build yourself up by saying, I'm a, whatever, queer, pansexual, atheist with 2 moms.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like all the letters and all the craziness comes before your name,
right,
as a way to build you up. So I don't know. It really was. I mean, that's why I wanted to use that phrase back asswards, because I was trying to go somewhere. It's like they're trying to reverse everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Right.
But anyway, it's like you said, it's good to see the ship, being corrected and coming back on the course. So.
Right.
But another thing that I'm super excited about, as a former tax guy, Trump is out, pushing for some of these campaign promises that he's made now, going forward for this week and the weeks coming. He's out pushing again for these no tax on tips. Well, first of all, let me say they want to make the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that, he put into practice in his first term They want to make those permanent because they were about to expire. That they technically are going to expire pretty soon or something. I don't have the dates, but they're trying to make that permanent, which is wonderful. They should. I really think that part of the fact that the TCJA was about to expire, I really believe played a big role in him being reelected again, because everybody's taxes were going to go up across the board if these expired. So I think that's huge that these are going to be made permanent. But then he's also pushing, for some of the campaign promises that he made, like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security for retired persons, no tax on overtime. He wants to repeal the cap that they placed on the SALT deductions, which was part of his original TCJA, but they want to take that cap off, which is wonderful. I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds on what that means, but if you used to be able to itemize, it became much harder under the TCJA, and this is going to help. This will help it make it a little easier for higher income people to itemize again. So that's good, because higher income doesn't mean rich, So that's going to be great. I just want to brush on that. And then I think you'll see that some of the other stuff that I want to lead into is going to come back to sort of taxes and the IRS and stuff like that. So I don't know if you have any comments or thoughts on that.
No, I think it'd definitely be good to see some of those changes in some of the things from the Tax Cut and Job Acts be put permanent. I think that'd be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, some of the higher income listeners would understand that having no cap on SALT deductions is huge. That was one of the things that I just couldn't believe, that they capped SALT deductions at like $10,000 under the original TCJA. So for that to come up, for there to be no cap, is wonderful. And then I do also still think that there's going to be certain issues with this, like the no tax on tips we've talked about before, no tax on Social Security for seniors. It sounds nice, but I think there's going to be some issues with some of that. So it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll just have to follow up on how these things actually come out. But anyway, to shift slightly, I wanted to hit some of these. I'm sure our audience has heard of some of the discoveries that the Doge people made over at USAID, some of the crazy things that they were funding, or funneling money to. I just ask you as a sort of a pithy thing, but do you have any favorites? I'm sure you heard the list, or some, different outlets are reporting different portions. I'm not sure that there is one unified list of all this crazy stuff that they were paying. I looked at the White House, and they just have a short version. But did you hear of a particular one that you thought was just crazy that they were spending money on?
I've not really heard too many breakdowns of what all there is. I feel like the biggest thing that had come out was this whole thing about the Politico subscriptions. But I definitely believe there have been more absurd things than that.
Well, that's a good one, though, because we all suspected it. And I actually had saved that for last on my list, but that's great that you hit it, because I have to say that's the one that really is like a personal insult, I think, to me and us and sort of the work that we do, the small fry media guys, to find out that these lefty outlets that we knew were just spinning truth, or spinning lies, or trying to make truth out of lies, were being propped up. And we had heard all these things about how George Soros bailed out what was it? I'm not sure what the outlet is right now. Was it? Do you remember which one he bailed out?
No.
I can't think of it. But anyway, we knew we knew that some of these outlets had been funded by large left-leaning people like George Soros. I can't remember the exact outlet, but he literally bailed one out, I think something to the tune of like $400 million. So we knew these things were being propped up by outside sources, but to find out that our own government was funding some of this stuff too, just so that they would get positive press, so that they wouldn't run stories about the Hunter Biden laptop, so they wouldn't, basically make the Bidens look bad, is just crazy, And I'm sure there's, I say the point that we're small fry media outlets. We didn't get a check. We're up and coming. We're trying. We could use a grant. We could do a lot with a grant, couldn't we? Mm-hmm. We really could. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do with money. But to find out that it's just being used to prop up, these fake news outlets is kind of crazy. And I'm sure as I run through some of these numbers, the average person might feel this way too, just insulted that we have to pay taxes. They literally take payroll deductions before the money even comes into our pocket or bank account. The money goes straight to them, just to find out that they're spending it on, and here I'll start hitting some things. $50 million to send condoms to Gaza. $1.5 million for DEI in the Serbia workforce. $37 million to the World Health Organization. And remember, this comes from USAID.
Right.
I'm sure there's separate pots of money that also fund WHO. So $37 million from this one pot of money to the World Health Organization. $16 million for contracts. Is that what this says? I can't read my own writing. Contractors. $16 million for contractors in gender development offices. Or to create these gender development offices or something. I'm not sure. $4 million for the Center for Climate Positive Development. I don't even know what that is, but $12 million for the Bureau for Resilience, Environment, and Food Security. But one of the issues, I don't remember how many years ago this was, but there was a story out about how there's food scarcity in the military at one point. They were having trouble getting essential supplies to the soldiers, on bases here in the United States and stuff. So, this is just crazy to find out they're spending $12 million for food security. Food security for who? I don't understand. $6 million for redundant administrative support for the Center of Excellence. What does that mean? I love how the word redundant is in there. That sounds to me like this place is already funded, but here's $6 million more. Why not? $3 million for evaluation services for planning and learning programs. What does that mean? Planning and learning programs. For who?
We're evaluating the planning and learning
programs.
Well,
yes, exactly.
We're not even making the programs. We're evaluating the programs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Here's a big one. $102.2 million to International Medical Corps to provide Gaza medical services. $102.2 million.
That's a lot.
Well, and I saw another figure. I didn't write it down because it looked like a big number, and I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to quote that they've spent so many billions of dollars if I'm misreading the number. There was a lot of numbers in there, and but if you go back a couple of years, like starting in 2023, and look at how much money has gone towards this medical corps in Gaza, it's a lot bigger than $102.2 million. It's a lot of money. But then just to hit just a couple last ones, $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam, $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million for tourism in Egypt. Why are we funding tourism in Egypt? I don't understand that.
Right.
Then there's some smaller ones. I'll just hit these last three. $70,000 for a DEI musical in Ireland. $47,000 for transgender opera in Colombia. And they spent $32,000 to produce a transgender comic book in Peru.
Oh, nice.
So isn't that just crazy? I mean, that's a lot of... I wanted to sit here and sort of do this to total up and say, and just in these 12 or 15 examples that I've just given, that right there is $500 million or whatever. Well, I didn't total it because the numbers are so crazy. I can't sit here and add... I don't have a brain like that. I can't sit here and add millions and millions and millions of dollars together. So, but that's a lot of friggin' money. And, I just know that point would hit home to some people, that if they're going to spend $32,000 on a transgender comic book in Peru, do you know how much a $1,000 grant to our little business here would mean? What it would do for us, what we could do with that money? Think about everybody in America. Everybody in America could have a grant for $1,000 and use it well. But instead they're making transgender comic books and having operas in Ireland. And I mean, it's just crazy stuff.
Right? It is. And then, like, the left freak out about it. They're just losing their minds over it. And it's so silly to me that, like, that's the thing you're going to freak out the most about right now, is that we're trying to figure out where all of our money's going. Give us a break. But they're not going to give us a break.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, it doesn't really fit in with where I wanted to lead us, but it's a great point because, they sit there and say Elon Musk wasn't elected and these people he has working for him to review the books, we don't know who they are, these young kids or whatever. I don't know. Supposedly they're young tech.
Big balls.
Yeah. That was one of the names. Usernames for one of them, yeah. But, the whole question under Biden was who's really running the country. This was a guy who was mentally out to lunch and spent more time on vacation than I think any other president has. And we would say, those in the know or those who were with a keen eye would say, well, who's really running things up there? Who's really running that office? This is a guy who eats ice cream more than he does talk to the press. And they get so offended at that. But now we know exactly what's going on. We know that, they've formed this Doge thing, whatever it is, bureau, and they're going in and looking at the numbers. They're finding this list of these crazy payments, and they're sitting there saying, this guy wasn't elected and we don't know what's going on. No,
right?
It's the opposite. Under Biden, we had no idea what was going on, while all these crazy payments were being made. And now we're trying to fix it, and like you said, their hair's on fire.
Right? Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like the To America comment from Dana Perino again. It's like, who is out there under a rock thinking that this is true, that we don't know what's going on?
Right. Well, what's going on is exactly what Donald Trump said he was going to do. He was talking about doing this whole Doge thing like last summer during the campaign. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's silly that they're so shocked and they want to make it seem like it's so like mind-boggling that somebody would even do such a thing.
And the truth of it is that we didn't know what was going on for years, decades. Now it's getting fixed. It's getting uncovered.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hurry up and spin that somehow. Let's spin it somehow. How do we do it? I know. Let's accuse them of what we were actually doing the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just a page out of the Democratic playbook. But anyway, to circle back to, I guess, what is really going to be sort of my last point is just that I just want to highlight really how crazy this all is with these payments and stuff. Because under the Biden administration, we had a problem where our deficit just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. And in an effort to find more money to sort of help with this deficit or whatever with the federal government's spending problem, you saw Biden hire something to the tune of like 80,000 more IRS agents. You remember that?
Yeah.
It was big news. And they were supposed to be coming after us and reviewing us, the citizenry, for the payments that we make to each other and stuff like that. They came out with these new 1099 forms that these payment services like Venmo and PayPal were supposed to start issuing. If you paid, like just as an example, but you and I often trade money back and forth for the rent and for the utilities and things like that. It's an easy, I've had PayPal almost since it was created. I won't say literally, but it was pretty soon after it was created. I've been with PayPal for a long time. I really trust PayPal. And I remember just thinking, well, that's crazy. I trade money with lots of my friends on there. So a friend will text me and say, can you help me out? Can I borrow so much money for 2 weeks? And it's like, sure, because I know they'll give it back. It's no problem. Just a little trade here, a little trade back. But when I see this story that these 1099s are going to be issued for such payments, it's like, what? And as a former tax guy, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm now going to have to account for this? For my rent payments and my utility payments and giving my best friend a loan or a very good friend a loan? It's crazy. They want to pick on us, but meanwhile, with the money that they get, they want to send $2.5 million of it over to Vietnam for electric vehicles. So, it's just sort of a double highlight. But not only is it an insult that they're giving this money away in the first place to these things, but a second insult is that they're going to, if things had stayed the way it was, or if Harris had won the election, they were going to come after us,
right,
for, utility payments and Venmo payments, PayPal transactions.
right. Basically, drops in the ocean compared to some of what they're doing with our money. In some cases.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And just what an insult.
Yeah. Right.
And I think you'll see, just like with the military story, Trump did a thing where a lot of our corporations had left because they could get a cheaper labor force in other places.
Mm-hmm.
There was no barrier as far as like tariffs to import these things back into the United States in a lot of things. So you saw a lot of manufacturing, a lot of jobs, a lot of companies leave the United States. Well, under his first term, he tried to lower the corporate rate. He tried to do a lot to get people. He changed some of the, I can't think of what it is right now, whether it's FINRA or something like that, but he changed some of those laws so that people could repatriate their money back into the United States and not be hit with huge fines and stuff like that. Just their regular 15% or whatever he had set it at. Maybe 21. I can't remember what the rate is right now. But it's just one of those things where if you want more money, all you have to do is make a reasonable tax policy.
Right.
And you'll see more money.
Right.
But you make it harder on people. They don't want to comply. You'll see people expatriate, leave.
Right. Like, money goes where it's treated best.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy. And I think, well, I really hope and pray on this, but I think the way it's going, we are going to see a huge rebound as far as our deficit and some of our spending. Now, I have to say some of our spending because I'm sure Trump likes to spend too.
Yeah.
He's a spender. So
unfortunately.
I hope that it really changes the tide. I mean, to see some big chunk of the deficit go away would be amazing. A step in the right direction. I think that would give a lot of hope to a lot of people and really start to raise our standard of living again here in the United States.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think there's definitely a high probability of it if we can get the right kind of policies passed.
I definitely think they're taking a step in the right direction
Right.
as far as tax policy and controlling some of this errant spending.
Right.
But I just hope they can still control themselves as far as what they see as justified spending, because there still is, that's somewhat subjective, and there still is a potential for them to just spend, baby, spend. And so
right. Yeah.
I hope it goes the right way. But
yep, me too. Oh, well, is that all you got?
yeah, that's all I really got. I mean, there's a couple other things I could hit, but we could save them for the bonus segment, or we could keep rolling.
We'll save it for our bonus segment. So listeners, if you want to hear what those extra stories are that we have, be sure to become a paid subscriber through our podcast host Red Circle so you can hear what we're going to talk about next. Well, all right, listeners, if you have enjoyed this great conservative conversation, please be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You can find us on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, and many major podcast listening apps. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search at Conservative Conversations 92 and you'll find us.
That's right. We also hope you might like this wherever you're watching it, or share it with a friend, leave us a comment, send us an email. Those are just free ways that you can, help us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions for future videos. We also hope you might share us with a friend or two and encourage them to become paid subscribers through our host platform, Red Circle, so that they'll have access to the same bonus and exclusive content that you have access to. And as always, we thank you for listening.